You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
It's with great sadness that we come to everybody tonight. That we have a very sorrowful announcement. You can probably see from this wide shot here. But unfortunately, COVID is not over. Not for our good buddy Sean. His chair is empty tonight. We sadly take a drink. One for
our homies.
One for our homie.
The aroma.
Woodford's officially not a sponsor of the show.
They're not associates.
But, Sean, I just want you to know that we're here for you.
Gone, but never forgotten.
Not forgotten. And you know what, Sean? If anything, you can be happy that the Indians, they didn't take them. That Washington football team, they changed their name and they were happy.
The Commanders.
The Commanders.
The Commanders will revive
And
John.
he will command us throughout this episode tonight. We drink to you, good buddy. Just for you. We're pouring one out for you tonight.
For you, may the Commanders revive you.
That was beautiful.
This is my beautiful tribute.
That was beautiful.
He's not our only loss this week.
Sadly, no, he is not. We hope to see him again soon.
Oh, yes.
In our memories and in our hearts.
The Commanders will bring Sean back to us, but the next loss I speak of will remain gone.
He is lost, but immortal throughout the ages of film.
He's with
as
Ramis
the great
now.
director. Oh, that was beautiful. I'm sorry.
He's with Harold Ramis.
He is with Harold Ramis, yes. Director and producer Ivan Reitman sadly passed away this past week at the age of 75.
And I'm sad because obviously I'm a fan of Ivan Reitman. I enjoy not just Ghostbusters, which is of course the movie that most people know of him, but some of his other because he worked on other comedies with Bill Murray and Harold Ramis, and it's crazy to me that here we are again. It's like again week after week.
I know. I mean, we just keep losing them. The greats are just leaving us one by one at the beginning of this year.
Oh yeah,
and just obviously. It's sad they're not getting any younger.
I think it's telling that we're getting older, that all these people that made the things that we loved as children are now getting so old that they're passing. And I'm just like, what? I mean,
if anything, you could easily bring up what we're going to talk about in the show later on, the Super Bowl trailers. But even just the halftime performance in general shows just the age of... it's our generation's time to finally be like, oh,
memes,
wait, we're the old ones?
Yeah, all the memes online were about the children being mortified by their parents getting up and rapping and yelling at the TV. So.
Hey, it started with our generation, so don't even. Uh-oh. Were you trying to push something?
No, I was just turning the volume on
my
headset down.
I didn't know if you are entertained.
No. Well...
Are you not entertained? I wanted to make sure it was working.
It's
we
working.
were trying to do some magic yesterday.
That was just me
work.
On my own. I wasn't, but you
trying
to call
to work
attention to it.
Well, no. I brought it up because we were messing with the soundboard yesterday.
We were,
and I wasn't able to get it. Sean was going to join us.
Yeah, he was
remotely.
Over the phone.
We couldn't get it to work right, but then he also just texted us today and was like, "Hey, I'm not feeling good.
Yeah,
so I'll just sit this one out. So get better, our friend.
Yeah, he's at home. He's taking it easy. We do love him. But he'll be back. The Commanders will bring him back.
Of course, the Commanders are going to. They've already brought him to us.
But yes, Ivan Reitman really has passed. That's not a sadistic joke.
I mean, just so many good movies. Obviously, Ghostbusters being the biggest, but Stripes, filmed right here in Louisville. Bits and pieces of it, and throughout Kentucky in general. But so many other hits that he even produced, working alongside some of the greats when he was up in Canada with Belushi and Rick Moranis, and just the entire beautiful, wonderful cast that was from SCTV that brought along a lot of the greats to SNL that we knew from the good days of SNL. Yeah. But even just executively producing, like Kindergarten Cop was a wonderful favorite. Well, actually, I think he directed that one too.
He directed Twins.
Yeah, another. He did like 3 Arnold Schwarzenegger movies that were the friendly after
but
Terminator.
They were good comedies, and I mean, Ivan Reitman he made good comedies, and you don't get a lot of those now today because I think the art of landing jokes or just not even being offended by jokes has gone away. So
true. Well, and even in the article that we linked to in the description, it wonderfully stated how his uncanny ability to rein in those who would just go off on an improv scat, but then be able to piece it together to fit the mold of the entire film and direct you in such a way that you still felt creatively free, but it wasn't so off the cuff that it didn't make sense. Well, and that's the brilliance of just a great director in general.
It speaks of his brilliance as a director to have, because when you look at some of the people he worked with, especially Bill Murray's known for being difficult on set. I mean, there's a lot of larger-than-life personalities and comedians that he directed, and everybody got along with him. Everybody loved him. I mean, you never really heard... Yeah, I mean, there was the falling out between Bill Murray and Harold Ramis, but you never heard of anything between Ivan Reitman or any of the people that he worked with. So you could tell he could rein in those personalities.
Not to mention, I mean, he bore a son that's going to carry on his legacy. I mean, already with Ghostbusters Afterlife, and before that, Up in the Air is a tremendous film, fantastic film, which he co-produced. And I learned too today that he actually co-directed. The most recent things that he co-directed were those Apple shot on iPhone commercials for Christmas. He did that with Jason.
Oh, nice.
So I thought that was interesting. That I'm like, he's really, since the late 90s to recently, been out of the director's chair, but produced so many films that you would recognize, whether it was Up in the Air from his son, No Strings Attached, which... Yeah, it's a rom-com. I wasn't too great, but Ashton Kutcher, Natalie Portman. There were a bevy, if you look on IMDb, of credits that he produced throughout the 2000s. I mean, he's been in the game ever since he started.
Took a back seat to directing and started producing comedies. And I mean, same thing with Spielberg. Spielberg produces stuff that not all of it's going to be good. I mean, just because you throw your money at it doesn't mean you do have creative input as a producer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the movie's being created exactly as you would make it as a director. So
And no doubt, just a heartfelt loss in the filmmaking world. We're losing the actual greats in the industry, and of course, we're going to talk about later in the headlines. Well, the greats are not continuing on with the current legacy of the Academy.
No,
let's just put it that way.
We're going to get there. Yeah,
we're going to be talking about the Oscars and their plans with the new hosts that have been revealed, and of course, even now, finally trying to give the fans a voice. Yeah. We'll get into that, but of course, we teased it a little bit on Facebook, and we've had enough humdrum talk.
Humdrum.
Let's talk now about something more positive. Like a not supernatural, but a psychological thriller.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, not supernatural by any means,
but
very realistic.
Very realistic.
Other than maybe some nitpicky things, but
which we'll get into. But of course, after our official review of the Daily Wire's very own movie, Shut In.
Smaller yet well-made films have become increasingly rare. Major studios rely on massive blockbusters and franchise films for major income, with smaller films focused on award season. Smaller intimate films that aren't being eyed for awards often go unnoticed. Even worse, Hollywood is full of unmade scripts that don't fit the mold studios are looking for, highlighting once again Hollywood's major disconnect with the average moviegoer. Yes, crowds love massive blockbusters such as the Marvel films. Yes, audiences enjoy being moved by powerful dramas. But do you know what all film viewers love? Being entertained regardless of politics, beliefs, or credos. Caught up in the money-making machine or ideals and politics, Hollywood in the last decade only seems interested in making movies centered around these two goals. Which makes it that much more refreshing when a film comes along that doesn't get caught up in any of that, and just tells a great story that entertains. Shut In is that movie. Directed by DJ Caruso, director of Disturbia, and starring Rainey Qualley as Jessica, a young mother of 2 and recovering addict. Jessica is recently on her own, separated from her ex-boyfriend and father of her children, Rob, played by Jake Horowitz, who refused to get clean and quit doing drugs. Home alone with her children, Jessica accidentally traps herself inside the food pantry when her ex shows up to the house letting her out. With Rob is a fellow drug user, Sammy, played by Vincent Gallo, an alleged child rapist. When Jessica scolds Rob for bringing Sammy into the house with their children, Rob becomes angry, perceiving Jessica to believe herself better than him for getting clean. Rob then traps Jessica back in the pantry, leaving her to fend for herself. The movie proceeds from these events filled with suspense and tension as Jessica must find a way out of the pantry for her children's sake, one of which is an infant and the other a very young child. Jessica must also contend with keeping her children safe from intruders such as Sammy and Rob, all while trapped. Much like last year's Run, Hide, Fight, which we at Red Moon also reviewed, Shut In is a film from the Daily Wire, which is, yes, a political news and media company. This, in and of itself, would seem to make the film's very existence rooted in politics, something I praise the movie for not being. I can and will clarify. Shut In is a film accessible to all audiences. It promotes values and morals that are universal. Its themes and ideals are organically written into the story. They do not feel politically motivated and are again fundamental truths and morals that all would agree with. In this way, a movie produced by a political outlet is far less political than anything that came out of Hollywood last year. Shut In isn't perfect, though. It does not tread new ground and isn't anything outside of what I've seen from similar thrillers. The movie is straightforward, and sometimes the characters make clearly illogical decisions or have unjustifiable lapses in judgment. On the other hand, however, the characters are very real and relatable. And considering all the adults in this film are either drug addicts that are currently high or a recovering addict, some lapses in judgment are completely justifiable. What the film does best, however, is tell an entertaining and engrossing story, with plenty of tension. You can feel Jessica's desperation as she needs to get out to make sure her kids are fed, tucked in, and diapers changed. You can feel her loss of spirit as she is helpless to help them. The frustration and small moments where she snaps at her older child only to quickly apologize are real of regular parents, let alone those struggling with addiction. Jessica is not a perfect person, or a perfect parent. The film highlights perseverance and redemption, but for those willing to sacrifice for it to become better people. The characters are believable and the cast gives solid performances. The movie is well made and truthfully has some of the best suspense I've seen in a film since A Quiet Place 2 last year. No, Shut In isn't an Oscar-caliber film, and it's not a massive mainstream blockbuster. It also isn't pretentious, nor does it browbeat. Shut In tells a straightforward story that is well made and entertaining. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it does tell something true and visceral that will hook viewers and keep them on the edge of their seats. I give Shut In 3 out of 4 stars.
Ooh, 3 out of 4 stars for Shut In.
Tres.
I have to say, I'm sorry for all the rehashed footage in that review.
It's an independent.
It's an independent. Look, there's like I think 2 trailers that are I could pull footage
only
from.
The second movie Daily Wire has released. And
I just cut to Sean's camera. I'm just
nothing wrong with that. We miss Sean. I can't even say Sean. Drinking too much beer. No.
Yeah. Oh man, that's gonna be a fun review.
But yeah, I liked it. Like I said, there are some nitpicky things, I guess, but it didn't reinvent the wheel or anything. It wasn't like it was a thriller that I hadn't seen anything like that before. But it was just nice that it was a well-told, well-made story. Yeah. It did get I was had a feeling of suspense throughout most of the movie. I liked the tension in the film. That's one thing I do love about thrillers and suspenseful movies is if they get that tension well. That's something the original Halloween did.
Yep.
That's something that I feel like newer.
A Quiet Place, you mentioned it in the review.
A Quiet Place too. A Quiet Place nails tension.
Yep.
And I love that. That's one of the things about the new Scream movie I was a little disappointed in, is that I didn't quite get the same feeling of tension in it as the original.
Which is funny because a lot of people would even say that Scream's not that kind of film. But again,
no, but you still had those moments where you knew the killer was going to pop out and chase them, but you just didn't know when.
Well, and that's the thing. Even in a jump scare kind of movie, you can make it to where you think it's going to happen and subvert expectations and make it happen somewhere else that's unexpected.
What was creative about the originals is like he never popped out where you expected him to.
Right.
So, and with this movie, like I did feel the suspense because you feel her pain. I believe as a mother who is trapped, she knows she has these two very young children that one's an infant, can't take care of for themselves at all. The other's I wouldn't say a toddler, but not much older.
No.
Barely older. I mean, she is helping her mom and taking care of the child. But
okay, first off, even with that alone, I loved her explanation of things. Mm-hmm. The way she was explaining it to the toddler
is how you would.
Is exactly how you would do it to. I mean, I have nieces and nephews, and that's exactly how you would explain it to them in such a way they'd understand. And there were still things that she comprehended well beyond what the lead character is asking her to do. Yes. But yet, that's what you'd also expect from a kid, because there's little subtleties they pick up on that you don't notice.
They're smarter than I think a lot of people give them credit for. And I'm not saying but it's one of those things where I do feel the movie was realistic in that sense. I mean, even like I said in my review, the moments where she does like lose her temper or get frustrated and snaps at her kid. And like I said, in the movie, she's a recovering addict, but even non-addicts, I've seen parents that just kind of, your kid irks your nerve just one last time, and you just turn around and you're like, you need to shut up right now.
Yes.
I mean,
you lose it. You snap.
So seeing her kind of like have that snap where she's like, "There's no I'm trapped. I can't do anything," and then she has to apologize and console her child because she's like, "I don't mean that. I can't help you." And I believed all that. I believed that it was well done in that sense, and it was nice to have, I think, a movie that promoted, as I said in my review, universal morals. I know a lot of people will try to make the movie political just because it was released by Daily Wire, which is, of course, a political news outlet, a conservative news outlet. But I don't feel like they were really pushing anything in a sense that you would call propaganda. I mean, I don't think the morals and the themes in this movie were something that...
No, and in fact,
you could really argue
against. We've seen now with their first film that we also reviewed last year, Run, Hide, Fight, and now this one. And even with I'm looking forward to the Hyperions and even Terror on the Prairie, starring Gina Carano. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to so
both
far.
Of those looked good.
Yes, but it's like one thing that they've already nailed right away with just the first two releases is the fact that they've shown you they're not going to lean into just culturally what seems to be not only relevant with pop culture, because it's so far woke and gone these days, but it's also leaning heavily on, I would put it in such a way of just the movies that we're accustomed to and used to. And it's like you could, like I said, you could easily have placed this film back in the early 2000s, and there wouldn't have been a word said about controversy regarding, the biblical undertones or the Christian undertones.
I know that one of the heads of the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring, had mentioned that there was a lot of people. Hollywood wanted to change a lot in this movie.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The things they wanted to change.
Adding an evil dog, which is like, so we're turning it into Cujo too. But the fact that, but that was the thing. The fact that he said that they didn't like some of the things with the children, which leads me to believe they were afraid some of the violence pointed towards the children would offend or upset people. But then that made me think, okay, so they're adding the evil dog, but Cujo shows, violence towards a child with the dog.
Well, but even then,
it's one of those things where
it's the
in the 80s and 90s,
it's the watering down of the severity of what is that threat here.
It's true. I mean, they're just depicting something that can be a very true situation in real life. I mean, sadly, we've seen people attacked, we've seen people murdered, we've seen families murdered. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility. And as you were saying, the early 2000s, the 80s, the 90s, things like that were depicted in film. Like, there's nothing in this movie that I hadn't seen from a movie outside of any of those eras. So to me, it's like, are we becoming...
Well, and I think about the first movie that really came to my mind with the religious undertones was Signs from the early 2000s. Yeah. And, no offense, Daily Wire, no offense, Shut In, Signs definitely is up there. To me, it was one of the first hits out of the park with M. Night after Sixth Sense. However, even still, I would definitely peg it as nothing that was out of the norm for that time period. And a lot of people could look back and say, well, that was a different time in America, and that was when that kind of cultural undertones.
That's what they always say.
Well, of course, they want to talk about it in such a way that it's progress, that we're moving in a different direction. And it's like, no, regression happens the same way. Mm-hmm. And in my sense, this movie, when I started to watch it, this is not about some faithful bearing person who goes out into the world.
It's not an overtly religious film. I mean, yes,
no, not at all.
It has some religious undertones, and obviously, like, what kind of gets her through the ordeal. But again, those are, I think, realistic and personal. I mean, as like, you can't say, especially most recovering addicts, when they go through recovery and go through whatever it's AA or however you, most of those places tell you have to look towards a higher power anyways. They don't tell you it has to be Christianity, but they do say, you have to put your life to a higher power. So it's not unbelievable that she wouldn't have those thoughts or turn towards that as she's trapped in this pantry with the cross and the Bible.
And that's what made it realistic too, was the struggle that she had even in the pantry itself. I mean, if there's one thing about these movies, as a director, I would look at it as like, okay, this is going to be easy because you got one location. You've got a very small general cast, not very big at all.
I love that too, though.
Well, here's the thing. Not only do I love it, it's actually incredibly hard.
Yeah.
You have to entertain somebody for that extended period of time
in this
and
tiny
keep them
pantry.
engaged, exactly, with all the interactions that she's having to go throughout this pantry and not make it boring or dull. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, was the first sign of, as the movie starts and then it picks up with the tension and, of course, adds in little layers of not only her evolving as a character, but also in how she's struggling in that determination to survive and get out.
Yeah.
And to me, that throughout the whole film is what drove it. It kept me entertained. It kept me enthralled, engaged in knowing or in trying to figure out what's going to happen next. Mm-hmm. And so, to me, that ultimately already set it on a bar higher than even Run, Hide, Fight.
Yeah, I thought this was better than Run, Hide, Fight.
I do too, and I think at least in terms of, you talk about the Daily Wire, I think they're already starting off on a league of stepping in the right direction, and this took them leaps and bounds in just another great direction, or continuing down that path.
I mean, before I saw the movie, I did have some concerns. I mentioned to you during the review or before the show that watching the trailer, there were moments where both Rainey Qualley and Vincent Gallo, they had some lines in the trailer where I didn't think their acting seemed very convincing or good. I was like, ooh, that seems kind of cringy. Not like terrible, but it just kind of fake.
B-movie.
Yeah.
B-movie-ish.
But then I really feel like it was the way the trailer was cut, because certain lines were kind of moved to try to give you this idea of suspense in the trailer, that they're actually in different locations in the movie. And watching the movie, I thought both Rainey Qualley and Vincent Gallo were very good. And they are the crux of the movie. I mean, they're the two with the most screen time, with her being the protagonist, him the antagonist. But yeah, I thought it was very believable, especially her as a recovering addict, him being a deep addict, steeped in. I mean, he's high pretty much the entire movie. And it is. They both did great jobs. They were realistic. It did seem like a threat that you could believe, where he wasn't just this unpowerful force like a Michael Myers or a Jason. I mean, he was a realistic person that just broke in to see what he could get or what he could do. And he's high.
He went for a sure thing.
He knows, yeah. Yep. And them like kind of playing against each other and outwitting each other, because he thinks he has the upper hand. She's trapped in the pantry. It was believable. It was never a moment where I felt like he wouldn't fall for that.
Even
it's like,
some of the decisions,
he's high as a kite. He absolutely fall
exactly.
For that.
And even some of the decisions she made. I mean, I really liked, again, her evolution throughout the movie of just succumbing to her own weakness, but also in times of when she needed to pull it together and come through, when she is just like, on her last leg, and she's saying, I'm a bad mother. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to defend myself through this. And yet at the same time, it's still that will and determination that she pushes through and pushes beyond. And again, that's what gives the movie levity. But funny enough, you brought up, we've been talking about a lot of the positives.
Yeah, I was going to say, there are some nitpicky things.
Let's talk a little bit about,
I was
the
one thing that bothers me, a little slight spoiler alert, I guess, there's kind of a moment where you assume he's down and out for the count, and there's multiple times she could have fully checked to see if he was dead or not. And that bothered me. And yes, you could say, yeah, she's a recovering addict, maybe she wasn't. But I'm like, still, she trusts enough that he's out for the count to kind of leave her kids alone for even though she thinks it's only going to be a few seconds. It's long enough to cause problems.
Yep.
And it's like, listen, if I'm leaving my kids alone in a house where I know he's at, I'm absolutely going to double check and be like, okay, he's not a threat anymore. So
no, you're right. I mean, there is the one scene where, well, for one, and again, spoiler warning if you haven't seen the film, it's behind a paywall now. We watched it on the premiere night.
Yeah, it was free on YouTube. Now you have to pay a subscription to Daily
which
Wire.
I think the subscription, I may not be right on this. I think it's $10 for the premium.
I think you have to pay it's
or
like
maybe
$9.99
$15 or something to at least get past the paywall to see the film.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It's absolutely worth watching.
I mean, yeah, if you pay a price of a movie ticket, it's going to be more than $10. So if you just pay it the one time and cancel your membership so you don't get recharged, I think it's worth it.
But I will say that there's the scene specifically when she goes to stab him through the hand.
Yeah.
That fantastic, great suspense, but also great, exactly what the gut punch you want from an, in terms of reaction from an audience.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. However, I wanted to see, even though he's high, and he's struggling and he's got his arm now trapped under the door, I wanted to see a more forceful struggle from him.
Yeah.
I thought even with her, now granted they kind of clean this up a little bit later in the film when she tries to knock, it's a screwdriver she stabs his hand with. Mm-hmm. She has to kind of knock it loose with a brick.
Yeah.
To get it out. And
that
granted,
firm in there,
I would have been okay with that explanation if I had just seen him struggle to get. Because look, if that's your only thing that's keeping you under that door,
you're gonna fight for it.
You're gonna fight.
Yeah.
And to me, I just felt like there was
him
no
being
fight.
That high, he probably couldn't feel a whole lot. So I feel like he would be pulling more. Because he wouldn't realize how much pain he's in. He would just be pulling.
And most people we've seen on any kind of coke bender, or even if they're in withdrawals, they're a little bit more physically much more motivated, but they're also way more out of their mind.
Yeah, they don't really realize what's happening to them. It's after the fact.
And they don't really explain if he's on a bender or not.
No, but
still,
they kind of allude that you're pretty sure it's like, these guys are out there.
Yes, and not only that, but I definitely thought, okay, especially once there's the part where she lights the match and lights his whole arm on fire. At that point, I'm like, okay, he's pretty much out for the count. However, in agreement, the part where she reaches over and she touches his wrist for the pulse, and doesn't feel it, I'm just like, nah.
Yeah.
This is what kind of frustrated me. So there was a scene that was beautiful with them kind of talking back and forth, and of course he's getting on her nerves.
Yeah.
And she's just ever more kind of losing it. And she has this can opener, or not can opener, I'm sorry, it's the top to like a mason jar. And she's already trying to use it to pick at the floor because she's already put a decent sized hole in the floor, and she's been using the screwdriver, which is now in his hand. So she's using it, which granted, I'm just like, okay, maybe she's not that smart. She's a little bit half-wit right now. She's out of her mind. She'll use whatever's at her disposal.
Yeah.
I was okay with that. But then when she starts hearing him and he's getting on her nerves, and she reaches over and cuts his hand with the mason jar lid, I loved that.
Yeah.
However, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, if you're wanting to make sure before you fully get out of this room and go rescue your children, this guy's dead, why wouldn't you slit his wrist?
Yeah.
Let him bleed out right there.
Yeah.
Like that to me was the first thought in my head where I'm like, no, I would have definitely made sure if this was the last move I was going to make.
When he's laying, like when she, like again, spoiler alerts, but when she does get out and she is checking like to get the keys or whatever, and he's right there in front of her, I'm like, I would have taken a knife, I would have taken that screwdriver, something, drove it straight into his head. I mean,
yes,
but yeah. So there were a few moments where, and maybe I get it. It's easier to say you're willing to kill somebody, but it's like when you're defending your children, I feel like you do have a little bit more willingness to make sure they're safe.
Absolutely, and that's where I thought that was just one of that led to a scene that I thought was built for the thematic element of suspense that leads into the kids being in danger, and then of course the boyfriend showing up and putting. I just felt like that scene was the one scene in the movie that was a little bit too contrived, and with him already being out and about, laying out on the ground, and him, his arm pretty much halfway burnt, him having no real physical strength at all. But even when she goes to check him in the kitchen before she runs out to the car, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, there's a chance for her to just, end the deed or do the deed and end his life right now and make sure that he's definitely a done deal. And I think that would have been more believable than her going about the way she did. And again, granted, that's where I kind of give the film a little bit of leniency with regard to her mindset and her focus, because she is a recovering drug addict.
We did give it 3 stars, so I mean it's not a perfect film by any means. We didn't go 3.5, 4. So I mean it does have some flaws, but nothing that I thought detracted from its entertainingness. I did think it was just a solid and well-made movie,
no doubt.
And I don't think there are any browbeating on the same level in Hollywood produced movies we've seen.
Oh, no.
And I know they would argue and say, oh, absolutely. But I really think that if you just want to have a nice suspenseful film and be entertained, this is perfect. Watch it.
I love people who have seen that say this is for anybody. Again, it's not for the kiddos.
No.
It's very much rated R.
It's
but
for anybody
of
no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on,
Exactly.
because I think a lot of people are going to try to make this movie political, and it's not. No matter what your viewpoint is, I think
we've
you
already
can-
seen that
you
it's
can
gotten
relate.
panned by certain critics that either one didn't watch the actual film because they weren't sent a screener to begin with, and even if they got their hands a hold of it, we know they didn't watch it because you can look at the Rotten Tomato score and see that there's only been like 6 critical reviews.
Yeah, there's only
And yeah, you may say, oh, well, it's an indie flick. It's a small-time flick, so that a lot of people didn't review it. But there's like 1,000+ like regular viewer scores.
Most movies have more than that many. Like, I'm surprised.
Even a smaller indie flick. And it simply is based on the fact of where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Daily Wire is truly setting the precedent of not only pushing forward the culture war in terms of where it was in the way in which we should be fighting it, which is there used to be a thing called entertainment, and you used to be able to be entertained without having some kind of social or political agenda shoved down your throat.
Yeah.
And they no doubt are taking that step in that direction, and they have done so successfully now on 2 occasions with Run, Hide, Fight and
Shut In.
with Shut In. And I'm only looking forward to more of what they have to come.
We'll see what they bring.
So definitely worth a watch. Go subscribe to the Daily Wire at least for a month to check it out. And if you're still kind of feeling iffy, they got another movie coming out next month. That's The Hyperions.
Yeah, that one looks good.
And that one actually looks funny. It looks like a comedy.
That one, that
something a little more lighthearted than the darker psychological thrillers that the last 2 have been. So a little different taste. Which I hope they continue to have that variety of content.
You know what's not funny?
What?
A few of the people they've chosen to be Oscar hosts this year.
What? No.
Just in my opinion, but I mean, I think that's in the headlines.
No,
We gotta get
I was
there.
going to say I don't think I could have done a better segue.
I don't want to cut off our intro this week.
That's right. Let's roll that beautiful intro. All right, I'm going to do something dangerous.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
I mean, you're that pissed about the Oscars?
Not really, but
it should surprise you.
It's I think, like I said in my text when you first sent us the link, that for the last 3 years, the Oscars have not had hosts. Part of this is, of course, with the Kevin Hart debacle, and then they decided to go hostless that year. But then, they decided, this might actually be better for the ratings and keep us at a shorter runtime if we just go hostless. And then this year they decided we're going to bring hosts back, but we're going to double down on the reason people don't want to watch our show anymore by picking hosts
ridiculous.
that are going to blatantly make politically driven jokes.
well, that, and not only that, I mean, to me, it's no secret they picked 3 women.
Yes.
2 of which are
and for those who don't know, it's
racial.
Amy Schumer,
covering the checkbox of racially, motivated. Yes. I mean, come on.
Amy Schumer, Wanda Sykes, and Regina Hall are the 3 hosts.
Which Regina Hall was on there last year as a presenter, and she was terrible.
Yes, I don't.
How is she's not even a comedian? Is she?
Well, yeah, I don't.
I didn't see her as one.
I mean, she used to do some like comedic things, but not like outright like in the same vein as like Wanda Sykes or Amy Schumer.
No, well, and honestly, I'm surprised even Amy Schumer. I mean, how she hasn't been popular in years. I mean, get ready to just lay on the freaking vagina jokes. Yeah. It's like, oh no, I'm at the Oscars and I've seen so many hot men in my and they're gonna have to just bleep out.
She did used to do not Amy Schumer, but Regina Hall was in the Scary Movie franchise for a while, and she did do.
Was she the first one in the theater? That wasn't her.
That was the
it?
second one, but she was
okay.
She's in the first 3. Yeah.
All right.
So she did do comedy, but she hasn't done it in a while.
That one was. I knew she was pretty good.
Yeah, the first 2 were fine. It was after that it went off the rails. But I mean,
they were all off the rails. But at least the first 2 have a little bit more of a. they're a kindred spirit to what the Scream franchise is and making fun of it. It actually is kind of, I think, what
just
movies,
any horror. There's
true,
because one was Scream, two
Signs.
two,
they had a bunch thrown in there.
2 was I don't know if it was the kind of the haunting and some other stuff. 3 was Signs. 3 was when they got bad.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 was when they started and they had the ring and all that. It was just.
Yeah, that was the one where doesn't she like hit her head into the TV? Or
they just
something?
got dumb. They got dumb. I mean, not that they weren't stupid before, but they were still funny stupid.
Right.
It's just then they just stopped being funny and just being stupid.
but
yeah, that's what.
Honestly, here's the other thing too, because the other headline we wanted to talk about as well was the fact that so back in 2018, the Oscars or the Academy danced around the fact that they were going to introduce a fan favorite category.
Yes.
Most outstanding, I forget what the actual category was. It's in the article. I forgot what they were going to call it, the official name. But they parted ways with that idea, and at the end of the year came to the. Do you have it?
Well, I'm
pulling it up.
It's being slow. It's being stupid.
I gotta love Apple, but it's funny because they parted ways with that idea, and they basically came out and said, we have to do a little bit more studying and testing on this issue because we don't know how to implement it without actually making sure it's done the right way. And so pretty much what
Oscars
it is,
fan favorite.
No. I think it's a little bit deeper in the article. They talk about the actual name of the category. That came out in 2018.
Yeah. Outstanding achievement in popular film. Yeah.
Which all together just kind of is like it's
a really stupid. It's like good
it's
job.
not a PC way of saying the category. It's giving it some official category.
Outstanding achievement. It's like good job. People liked your movie the most.
Right.
It's like is that an achievement? Like I mean, yeah, I guess you made a movie everybody likes.
Of course, it's an achievement, but that's kind of the whole. Again, their whole mentality is how do we maintain
your
this
movie's
prestige?
Not good enough to be Best Picture, but everybody likes it, so we'll throw you an award.
Exactly. It's so absurd.
And it's like. It's stupid because it's like we're just going to do this mini People's Choice Award just to like placate people who say Spider-Man should be nominated. And here's the thing. Do I think it's the best film of the year? No. It's better than Don't Look Up. It's more entertaining than, for me, Power of the Dog. It's one of those things where back when The Dark Knight came out and everybody was mad that didn't get a nomination because not only was it one of the most popular films of the year, but it was a legitimately great movie. And people were like, well, how come these type of movies never get nominated? So they kind of changed the rules so that you could have 10 nominees, and now it's up to 10 nominees. But still, the reason for expanding that was so that they could have a more diverse pick of movies that might include popular films.
Yep.
And now they just use all 10 spots to fill all of their agenda-driven movies, and I'm like,
well, but that's what's even more absurd is that along with even now like having the 3 hosts come back, and I'm like, you literally think these 3 women having one host each hour when we already thought
drive people to watch
exactly
the show
it's so hilariously
the
bad.
Outstanding achievement in popular whatever that's going to drive people back.
Yeah, no doubt.
Or they'll tune in long enough just to see who wins and then tune back out. If anybody even cares.
Nobody will care. I mean, look at the way they're handling it. That's the slapshot way of handling it. You can vote from now until I think March 7th?
March 3rd.
So March 3rd.
Which isn't even that long a time period. I mean, granted,
it's a Twitter poll.
Yeah.
You vote on Twitter and you can vote up to 20 times through their ballot box on their website.
Yeah.
They don't care. It's a way to placate to the commoners. Yeah. We're gonna let the peasants out there decide what they like.
Look, you all like this movie the most.
It just screams.
Let alone Spider-Man's the highest grossing movie of last year, and
here's the thing:
everybody loved it.
I know normal people are gonna be saying, "Well, then that's all that matters." And trust me, the business owners and the Hollywood execs are saying the same thing.
All they care about is the money. But
they care about the box office. But at the end of the day, the real story becomes how elitist do you have to be?
Yeah.
To pretend that these overtures that you're extending to the common person are somehow leading us to want to watch this show. No, it's still a slap in the face both ways you go. You get 3 women who aren't funny on there, and you get a category that has been underrepresented, and you completely oust by saying, we're going to do a Twitter poll, but now you're suddenly going to have the most watched, Oscars?
Of all time.
Heck No.
And well, somebody made a comment, and I agreed with it, was if Black Panther and Logan can both get nominations, why can't Spider-Man? It's Avatar got a nomination, why can't Spider-Man?
And I can tell you right now, No Way Home is way more dense than Avatar.
Oh, yes.
And that's saying something, okay? If you want to complain about superhero films, then you shouldn't reward Avatar.
Yes. And again, I don't think Spider-Man was the best movie. I mean, it was the most fun and entertaining in a sense, but I mean, it didn't move me emotionally in the same way as Belfast or leave me on the edge of the seat in the same way as Nightmare Alley. But yeah, I understand like why there would be a movement, at least for it to be nominated, maybe not win, when you have movies like we said, Don't Look Up, that nobody liked except for the people in Hollywood.
Well, of course. I mean, critically it's panned. Audiences have panned it. There's no reason that movie should be nominated. None whatsoever, other than its political agenda. And that's what's absolutely insane about Hollywood and the Academy elite. And they completely are continually driving themselves out of relevance. It's not like they are relevant anymore anyway. We've talked about it at great lengths on the show, how every year we almost used to look forward to the Oscars, and now we get tired of it. Mm-hmm. Because we still cover it because we're a movie podcast.
Well, yeah.
But truthfully, I don't look forward to it at all. It's a humdrum, like... ceremony
I used to look forward to
rich elitists.
Especially because back in the day when movies were nominated, that weren't things like Spider-Man, like Belfast, you would get movies that are overlooked that you would watch and realize, oh, these really are the best movies of the year, but they didn't get a lot of fanfare. Right. Like Slumdog Millionaire. That was one that people,
it's a good movie
that I think people kind of came to after it won because they realized, oh, what's this about? They watched it, they liked it. Now people don't watch movies even after they win the Oscar because they're like, oh, well, we know what that's about. We don't have to bother with that one.
Well, and I think it's interesting because, like you said, it's there used to be these picks that were kind of even if they won, you could kind of say, okay, well, that's the Oscar pick. Like, that's the Academy type film that they're looking for to uphold their honor and their prestige. However, there would still be those underlying films that were nominated and that would even have a close chance of winning that were still popular in terms of regular audiences seeing them. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago, how really it's not been since, I would say the year that Birdman won and onward. Yeah. I mean, and that's close to almost 6 or 7 years ago. So for 6 or 7 years...
It's been almost, I think
the Academy has truly been almost irrelevant every year that a Best Picture nominee has won. But at least when you look back...
Yeah, 8 years, 2014.
So when you look back on Forrest Gump, movies that were nominated that won...
And those
that
actually were popular movies.
Yes.
Saving Private Ryan.
Popular movie. Schindler's List. Mm-hmm. Another one. I mean, you look at the 90s and even before that, you look at several of the films.
Return of the King, that was, insanely popular, and of course, winner of 11 Academy
Oscars,
Awards because it was that good and it deserved them.
Way more than Titanic. But no, exactly. We pretty much have decided that really I think the year Birdman won is kind of the definitive point we look back to.
That's when the Oscars were just like, we no longer really care about movies, just our agenda.
It is. It's almost like they are trolling us. It's like they're trolling us in terms of being viewers and fans of movies. That's what I think is so kind of, it's this little backward, patting on the back of, just kind of like, oh, nice, or, patting you on the head of, thank you for so much for loving movies. Because they come out with these statements of, we're hoping this will engage people who love movies across the globe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you really don't care about those people, because ultimately what you're trying to engage in is, again, upholding your right to say, well, this is what matters. This is the bar we're trying to reach, and we're going to go there at all costs, regardless of what the common folk say. And here's the thing. Okay, so be it. But again, you're driving yourself to irrelevance. And that's really where the Academy is stuck at. I mean, I have no doubt that these instances are not going to change a thing. If anything, it's going
to boost ratings.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just kind of a laughable attempt. I mean, both articles, when I saw them, I laughed out loud because I was like, these are just sad, pathetic attempts at trying to still be relevant and get people to pay attention to us while we're really not going to change. We're going to act like we change and throw out the stinky little best achievement in popular film award, but we're really not going to change.
I don't want to give him credit or anything, and I can't stand him as a person, truthfully. But even Seth Rogen came out.
No, I did see that, and I agreed with what he said.
He just said, maybe people just don't want to watch the Oscars.
He said, why do they? He said, I don't care. Why would he's like, I don't care. He said, I don't care what awards, like mechanics give each other. Why would other normal people care what awards we give ourselves? I was like, I agree.
No, he's right.
He's right.
He is exactly right. And I think it's a matter of just instituting this underlying, cultural, I think, upheaval of, again, once you get to a certain upper echelon of how you think it matters, your title, your success, and the awards you give yourself, you really have become so upper crust that nobody cares. And that you can give your awards all to yourselves all day, every day you want. But nobody cares. Nobody sees it as an actual achievement anymore.
It is an achievement.
It's just a simple grandstanding effort to say that I matter and what we're pushing matters.
They matter.
And it's like, come on. We've known this for years. The audience have tuned out. They've turned away. And I think, honestly, I'm betting on it now. This year will be no different. You will see, again, a decline in viewership with the Oscars, especially after the announcement they just made today with those 3 hosts. Nobody is tuning in. If anybody does tune in, it'll probably be on the highlight clips on YouTube just to see how bad it was. That'll be it. So that's the Oscars of 2022 that we have to look forward to. Enjoy that. But let's move on to a little bit more lighthearted news. And that was...
Alec Baldwin's getting sued?
Hey, yeah! Isn't it great? Helena Hutchins' family is actually suing Alec Baldwin.
I don't know if that's where you were going. It tickles me pink because not
can you pass the bourbon?
Yeah.
I'm serious. I want some more. Give me some more. I want some more.
Brandon's getting drunk on the show.
I'm not gonna get drunk. I'm just gonna get tipsy.
But here's the thing. I'm not tickled pink over the incident and the loss of life, but I do think he should be held accountable for his part in this. And so far, he's been skating by. He's been trying to skirt all accountability. Oh, I never had my finger on the trigger. Oh, I was told it was not loaded. Oh, this and that. And it's like, I'm sorry. You still bear some responsibility no matter what you were told, no matter what you did. If a gun's in your hand, it's your responsibility to make sure that everything is safe. You're following proper safety.
Yep.
So, yes, I'm glad someone is holding him accountable and he can't just weasel his way out.
100%. That's what I meant by it being exciting news.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But no. The other news.
That's all I have to say about that.
No, I concur completely. 100% agree. And I'm just glad that, again, due process will have its way. Yeah. We'll see it through the courts. We'll see what happens. I'm just glad that her family is now stepping up to take the claims and saying, okay, it's the father and the son that are saying, we think this was recklessly handled, and we're holding him accountable.
Yeah,
so be it, and the staff in general.
And he is one of the main producers on the film, so even still, he's still accountable. I mean, even if it wasn't the gun in his hand as one of the lead producers, he's still accountable.
No doubt. And the fact that he has skirted that responsibility shows you the kind of character he has and the coward that he is, and the fact that he himself should step forward and say, I completely take 100% responsibility. It was my fault. But he won't. And he'll take that to the grave. But hopefully that grave happens because, he's spending the rest of his days in prison.
So true lighthearted affair.
Yeah. A little
Super
doom and
Bowl.
gloom. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. Not the commercials. You can find that anywhere.
They weren't that great.
They really weren't.
The halftime show was. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed the halftime show. I think too many people are making...
I think people are trying to create something that's not actually there.
Yeah, I don't think the Eminem kneeling effort had anything to do with the Kaepernick callback.
No.
I understand it's been a thing, but it hasn't been for the last several months.
Like Snoop Dogg's outfit.
Since the season.
They said the NFL told him he couldn't have a blue bandana in his back pocket, so he wore a whole blue bandana outfit. I'm pretty sure... I don't believe the NFL didn't know what he was wearing to the Super Bowl. I don't believe all these things. I think they're trying to generate an outrage.
Agreed.
That's not actually there.
Agreed.
But again,
frankly,
that's not what we were meant to talk about.
No. Let's talk about...
I definitely was sitting... Me and Miranda, my sister, were sitting there just... Yeah, I mean, we grew up...
Look, I was going to say, we're part of that generation now.
Yeah.
And that is definitely callbacks to our... I don't know if I want to say childhood. It was
my dad
preteens.
Was in the recliner, knocked out. He woke back up as soon as the game started, but during the halftime, he's just like,
He didn't care.
My mom was playing on her phone, but me and Miranda were enjoying it. So
and granted, it was like we had alluded to. It's that meme where it's like, oh crap, we're the old ones.
Yeah,
now.
we're the old ones.
But let's talk about some of the trailers that dropped.
Movie trailers.
Movie trailers that came out.
Yeah, there was a plethora of.
There were quite a few.
I enjoyed most of them. Most of them were for movies we were already aware of. I always like it when it's a surprise, when you get a trailer you weren't expecting. I like the Doctor Strange trailer. I was very intrigued by what I saw. But again, that's not it's coming out soon. You expect that. Same thing with Sonic 2. There's another one.
Here I've got the list right here.
Yeah.
Actually, all of them. I didn't really care for. The Lost City.
That was terrible.
That was pretty bad.
Why does that need It's the Super Bowl.
Because
you're
it's coming out
your rom-com. No one cares.
I know. No, I would agree. Nobody does care.
They should have put "Marry Me" in there.
Well, they did. They had it as the pre-show.
Yes,
the pre-show
they did have it as a pre-show.
Let me put it this way.
Well, it was coming out. It was out that weekend. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's out. It's streaming on Peacock, and I will say I watched it on Peacock, and trust me, they made sure they pushed it. They made sure they pushed that film on Peacock.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Well, Peacock also aired the. Oh yeah, you watched the Super Bowl.
I watched.
That's how I aired it. Was on Peacock. Was the Super Bowl.
So the pre-show, they definitely had tons promoting it. But no, they had the teaser for DC, The World Needs Heroes. Yeah. Just all of their films coming out this year.
I'm interested in the Batman. I'm interested in seeing what they do with all of these films. I just don't have a lot of confidence in them.
Agreed. Cautiously optimistic. At least the trailer they showed with all of their IPs that they're coming out with this year.
Yeah, it was fine.
I thought it was. It left me feeling a little bit hyped for what they haven't thought of and taken into consideration before.
Yeah.
And at least with some of the marginal success that we've seen from Wonder Woman, not Wonder Woman 84.
And that's why Aquaman was fine. I'm nervous about the sequel because
even
of Wonder
the
Woman.
Snyder Cut got people amped back up, even though it has nothing to really do with the canon of DC and where they're going.
Yeah.
But you see The Flash, who is a return from the Snyderverse.
Yeah.
But then you also have Aquaman coming back in. You've got Black Adam.
Yeah, we have The Rock finally doing with Black Adam. That's been in the works for a long time.
Yep.
And then of course Matt Reeves and the Batman. And I am looking forward to that one.
Everybody's curious about Robert Pattinson and how he does.
Well, I'm interested in the Flash just because we know Michael Keaton is returning as Batman in that one. And
I hate to say this because I do not want to give credit to Ezra Miller. What they showed briefly, it's very brief.
It looked better.
It looked way better than the Flash I've seen so far. Mm-hmm. At least more personal.
But again, it's a different director. Andy Muschietti, who did the It movies. And I know I butchered his last name. I apologize. I can't pronounce it.
By the way, I this just popped in my head. I don't know why. Maybe it's the bourbon. I do want to bring up note that Ivan Reitman actually produced Disturbia.
Oh, yeah.
And that was from the director of our film that we reviewed tonight, DJ Caruso, for Shut In. So I just thought that was an interesting tie-in that, he just passed away this past week, and the director of the movie we reviewed actually ended up being produced by Ivan Reitman.
That is
one of the movies the director made. But also,
Andre, I was going to try to
go ahead.
Andre Muschietti, and I still probably butchered that. I apologize, but I like him as a director. Not all of his things have been great, but enough that I would give him a chance with The Flash. And what we saw, like you said, in the brief moments, I did think was more personable.
Again, before the announcement of the Oscars today, and the what they came out with, cautiously optimistic. Mm-hmm. After the Oscars announced what they did, absolutely no go. Same with this. It's like I'll remain cautiously optimistic. I'll give it a try. Yeah. But if Batman's bad, just like Wonder Woman 84, no.
And again, I trust Matt Reeves, but you never know. So
DC has a lot of work to catch up on.
But some of the other things, most of them are franchise movies. Like I mentioned, Sonic 2, I'm actually really excited about that. They're definitely leaning into more of the
and one more thing on DC. I just want to say,
oh, no, you're fine.
This was at least a teaser that kind of brought forth the element of we're now taking into consideration the entirety of DC.
Well, yeah.
It was very much, again, the spot was titled We Need Heroes. And the DC logo is prevalent throughout the whole spot. So they made it a point to say this is front and center. We care about the entirety of these.
And I'm hoping I could be wrong, but it does seem like they're going to try to use the Flash movie to finally kind of interconnect. They're going to bring about their multiverse. So now that they can explain, it's like, look, Matt Reeves' Batman may not connect to anything, but it's still part of this larger multiverse. And it's like, that's fine. Well, if they can pull it off and make things make sense going forward, I'll be happy.
They still need to be consistent, though.
Oh, yes. They have to be consistent. We haven't seen that yet. So
no. But continue on. I'm sorry, you were talking about Sonic.
Oh, I was just mentioning seeing the death egg in the trailer. I mentioned that to you, and it's like I do feel they're leaning heavier into the mythos, which excites me. I think they realize now, with the first movie being a success, we can go this route.
Is the same director returning?
Yes, same director. Jim Carrey full on has the Robotnik look now.
Yep,
and I do think they're like, okay, people will buy this.
What team are you?
As long as we, what team am I?
What team are you?
I mean,
pick a team.
Knuckles is going to end up being on the good team anyway. I'm going to go Team Knuckles.
Team Knuckles.
I love
all
Knuckles.
the way. I just always love Knuckles.
He always starts off as an antagonist because he doesn't realize Sonic's the good. Robotnik always tricks him into thinking Sonic's the bad guy. He fights. They realize, oh, we're not enemies. And then we know they'll team up in the end.
Well, of course. But I still think Knuckles has it to take Sonic.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of raw toughness.
No, he's gonna. Well, it's Idris Elba, so he's gonna not now. Even outside of the voice
then we
actor,
know the black guy has to take the white guy. That just has to be the case.
I mentioned Doctor Strange. I think it looks really good. They're really diving into the multiverse with that one too. There's rumors about all kinds of little hints in the trailers about all the different variants of different, not just characters. I mean, there was that voice that
I was wondering that too. What does that allude to?
Well, it's Patrick. They think it's Patrick Stewart because that's who it sounds like. Because they've been rumoring that.
But who is he?
Professor X.
Oh,
from X-Men.
Oh,
because the idea is
snap.
because there's also been the hint that like before Robert Downey Jr. like in the late '90s, early 2000s, Tom Cruise was attached to play an Iron Man, but it fell through. So there's this thing, and there's a brief clip in the movie that does look like it could because it's the glowing figure, and so people don't know. They think that's Tom Cruise as Iron, because again, they're not trying to replace or bring them into the main universe. They're just going to be variants
of the multiverse.
The idea and what I think they're going with, I hope it's true. There's this group called the Illuminati in the comics. Doctor Strange, Professor X, Iron Man.
Well, Dan Brown wrote all about it.
Yeah, no, they're the smartest people in the Marvel comics form this group, and they're basically just a bunch of pricks because they are. I mean, like Robert Downey, like as Iron Man.
The Academy.
Yeah. So I think the idea is that these variant versions are going to be the Illuminati because you see like Doctor Strange being drugged towards them by what look like Ultron bots in the trailer. So I'm wondering, definitely they're playing with some things that I think Marvel's finally kind of going. Maybe we're finally going to see a little bit deeper with this movie. I'm not giving up too much hope, but they've been with WandaVision, Loki, and then Spider-Man: No Way Home. They've been playing towards this for a while. So if they don't deliver in Doctor Strange,
and this is the weird thing. We've already talked about. I'm on two sides of the fence.
Yeah.
After Eternals let me down, it's almost as if you have to have something like a No Way Home.
Yeah.
To really bring back the excitement.
Yeah.
That ultimately still focuses on the love of Marvel, but also the love of the old. It touches on the nostalgia factor to a huge degree, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, at some point, there has to be a move forward.
Yes,
with regard to how far are we into this next phase? What is it evolutionary? Or
what are we?
What does it evolve into?
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's my only problem I have with this Multiverse of Madness is I would absolutely love nothing more than Patrick Stewart to be Professor X, returning as that role, just because for one it would cement the first time X-Men appears in an official Marvel movie.
Yeah, it would.
Since they've bought the IP from Fox.
Yeah.
However, it still is but it's just a tease of
what does it amount
because
to?
we know that it's not going to build into. We know Patrick Stewart's not coming back as Professor X
forever.
forever.
More than likely, he's not going to be the MCU. Yes, he may be the variant that we find in this movie, just like Tom Cruise,
like Tobey Maguire, just like Andrew Garfield.
There's no chance they're going to permanently replace Robert Downey Jr. with Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise wouldn't sign on for that movie, many movies. I
wouldn't want him to,
and nobody wants that. But as this funny kind of like, look what could have happened. Yeah, it'd be funny for the movie. So it's one of those things where definitely. But if it's not alluding to anything deeper, then it really is. It's just fan service, and I don't want just fan service.
Exactly.
I want it to amount to something. So we'll see.
And that's the only thing I'm still skeptical of.
There's another thing that I don't want to amount to fan service, and I know we're going to get there.
Well, I'm thinking of. Well, I was going to throw out. I'm sorry, Moon Knight. What about Moon Knight? What do you think of that? Because that's another Marvel IP that it's a series,
I
right?
liked the first trailer Moon Knight they released. I didn't care for this trailer because I just think they leaned into a lot of the quirkiness of the character without explaining it, so the trailer looked kind of hokey, in my opinion.
It kind of looked hokey, but it also kind of looked more, I don't want to say edgy.
Yes,
it looks a little bit more vigorous.
They are saying it's supposed to be a little bit darker, like Daredevil on Netflix, and I'm hoping that's true because that'd be like the first
Which
kind of.
We know that those also just got pulled.
Possibly, we know that there's that message in the UK. So it's one of those things where if it's true, that gives us hope that they aren't afraid to put those series on Disney Plus, like the rumor is, because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, those are too adult. They'll never put them on Disney Plus. They'll go to Hulu." But if Moon Knight is that dark, then why wouldn't they? So, and Moon Knight is a really interesting character. He has dissociative identity disorder. He has like 3 different personalities. One of them of which is Moon Knight. Like,
is he going to be a tranny?
No. It's one of those things where and I don't think this was more of a teaser. In the main trailer, they show like where he doesn't know what he's been doing and he's trying to figure out like what's been going on, like kind of like Sybil, like the blank moments, and he's trying to figure it out. So he is a great character and a dark character. I'm excited about the series. I do think that they wanted to, with this trailer, appease fans and show off some of the iconic things, but out of context, kind of like Raccoon, out of context, it comes off as, I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see how they... True. Marvel's usually pretty good at taking abstract characters and making them believable, so we'll find out.
Well, and one thing that I can absolutely hope for just fan service on in terms of just action, and especially after the first 2 were just abysmal, is Jurassic World Dominion. I really do just hope they go full bore, just all in on the action and just fun, make it a fun movie, a fun blockbuster.
I don't have a lot of faith. I did like the moment with Chris Pratt and Sam Neill when they're both like, nobody move. And it's like, of course, I mean, it was a little hokey, but at the same time,
I liked it and I didn't. They didn't even say it at the same time.
No, I would have been better that way. And it was one of those things where it's like, okay, it's kind of this passing the torch moment on the 6th and final movie.
Exactly. I'm like, you wasted that chance in the other 2 movies.
And I thought about that. That was my biggest problem watching the whole trailer was this is supposed to be the conclusion of like a second trilogy. At least that's how they're pegging it. It's like the final Jurassic whatever.
Right.
And this culmination of all 6 films, but it's like, you didn't, again, like kind of like the Star Wars sequel trilogy, the 3 movies don't really connect or flow as a trilogy. It's like you could have brought in Sam Neill or some of them earlier, even if you didn't have them all 3 together until the last movie, kind of like having Jeff Goldblum as a small role in the second one. You could have had this kind of passing the torch, because the way the trailer makes it seem now is that Sam Neill and the old gang are just like, oh, dinosaurs are running rampant.
We got to get back into our old ways. Yeah, we got to stop the threat.
Well, I got to believe that these 60-year-old people are willing to run around fighting dinosaurs. So,
well, and honestly, I ain't gonna lie. The moment I saw a freaking thoroughbred running out there with those damn dinosaurs, I just laughed. It's just terrible.
And granted, maybe they were already like it's. I don't know what part of the world they're in. Maybe it was warm and sunny, and then the weather changed as seasons do. But I'm just like, why are these dinosaurs in the snow and ice when they can't survive? They're cold-blooded. Yeah. Like, I mean, the Ice Age, they didn't survive through the Ice Age. They were wiped out before then. It's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, maybe the movie will explain it, but I kind of feel like it'll be one of those things where it's just never mentioned that, these dinosaurs are running out in the snow.
Maybe. All right, let's move on to the biggest granddaddy of them all.
Yeah, this is the
That's
one
right. We're talking about Ambulance. I'm just kidding.
I don't care about that movie.
Nobody cares. Michael Bay, hey, good on you. We'll see how it is. No, let's talk about the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power.
The Rings of Power.
Funny enough, I wasn't gonna come out right and say it, but funny enough,
I'm going to still be cautiously optimistic.
I think I'm erring on the side though of not being. I
don't really have a lot of faith.
I'm cautious. I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
I'll just put it that way.
I'm cautious. I'm not. Yeah. I was cautiously optimistic all the way until they started releasing stills like from the set of different characters, and then of course the Super Bowl trailer played. And the very first thing my mom said when it comes on was, "Is this a video game?" And I'm like, "This is the CGI is bad." When your mom's like, "Is that a video game?" So
it's Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, coming out of the PS5 and Xbox Series X.
It's like we just watched the 4K versions of Lord of the Rings, and their CGI was not. I mean, it's like come on, guys.
Not only that, but take Hobbit. The Hobbit's and it looked way more smooth and way more. Refined.
I saw an article today, and I rolled my eyes at it that basically said like something along the lines of like black elves are here now, deal with it. And it said if you can't accept, it's like
that lets you know right there.
Yeah, it said look it basically said a lot of people can complain about black elves and dwarves and hobbits and this and that and all this, but it's like if you're one of those people, and they'll say it's not racism, it's just out of like being true to the material, but this fandom doesn't need you. And I'm like, yeah, it's like I'm sorry, no. The fandom doesn't need you because obviously, what are you a fan of if you can't respect the original work?
Exactly.
And again,
well, here, okay. First
some
off,
things just don't make sense.
That even pisses me off anyway because it's like, again, it's this idea.
If you can't wake up and be woke and accept that something that never happened,
it's
because they'll say it's
progressive.
It's a fantasy story. None of it ever happened. They could have black elves. It's like, okay, but it's not.
There's still a mythos that you have to pay homage to, or otherwise it's not the same
I'm not
story.
Saying you can't have diverse people in Lord of the Rings. I sent you the meme. There's a whole southern continent that they haven't even talked about. But of course, that doesn't fit with. We don't want just any characters to be diverse. We need the specific characters people love, like the elves and this and that. And to me, what bugged me, because the still I saw wasn't even the. Of course, it's obvious that it's a biracial couple because it was the African American elf and then a white woman, and of course it's a relationship between man and elf, which is taboo in Middle Earth, and then of course it's in reality interracial because it's the African American elf, and it's one of those things where it's like I see what you're doing, you're not being clever about it, but I told you it kind of ruins the mythos in the sense that there's only three recorded relationships between man and elf in the Middle Earth mythos because they all tie into the lineage of Arwen and Aragorn and how their union kind of reunites this lineage, and that's a significant thing. And you take away from the significance, and people would say, "Oh, well, now you're just being a nerd and too nitpicky." But it's like, but that's the history of Middle Earth.
But
if you don't respect the same,
and that's the same problem that I have with this culture anyway, of trying to lump their woke politics onto something that's already popular.
Yeah,
and the fact that it existed well before that.
If
it
doesn't fit your ideology, then don't tamper with that. Go make your own thing.
Exactly. That's my biggest issue. My biggest issue is, I mean, take the movie we just reviewed tonight, Shut In.
Yeah.
The very fact that we talked about it having universal, ideas or ideals and even, just characteristics that you could easily apply to any society or culture because that's how human nature is. The problem and the uniqueness of the left is that they want to try to just eradicate those and act like that doesn't even matter, and we can just apply our own type of mentality to what it is we desire.
Yeah, just change it to fit our viewpoint. But
exactly.
You made a good point. That it's not like the Daily Wire took something that's more left-leaning, like The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and turned that story into a more conservative tale. They made their own story, and that's
which they could easily do.
And they could.
If they did, they would get lambasted.
They could take anything and adapt it with their own spin on it, and they would get lambasted for it. And I would say rightfully so, because I mean I like that story.
It wouldn't be original,
but it's not. Yeah, if you take away what makes the stories great, because I mean I did like the book Perks of Being a Wallflower for different reasons, but it's one of those things that if you change what is in the essence of it, then you're no longer making that's my problem with some of the Harry Potter films. I know people love those, but there's a lot of things in that I felt like aren't fleshed out, and they're kind of just they're to appease mass audiences, which they did. The movie, you could tell the movies were made to appease mass audiences, and I mean it turns a profit, but it doesn't really do justice to the material.
But even then, I would only say to a certain degree.
Yeah, because
at the end of the day,
they don't hold the same weight.
Exactly. And I think that's the true testament of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and the reason why we're holding so much cautious, optimism, or even just being cautious in general towards any kind of Lord of the Rings IP, is because we know how well the actual story can be told in a narrative form, like film or like television. And the fact that we're so hell bent on making sure that this is done in the good faith of holding true to J.R.R. Tolkien's original work is simply because you already can see and understand how the movies speak volumes to not only our generation that it released in, but also the generations to come. Again, we have this debate all the time when it comes around Oscar time, or even around films in general, that you want to talk about with regard to holding weight. There is this timeless nature in which those films continue to press forward and showcase their weight in how they impact future generations. And to me, that's exactly what is being overlooked in this trailer when we watched it for the Super Bowl, we all had the same reaction that night.
Yeah.
We all texted each other. Like
Sean said it looked like Narnia.
Yeah, and it did.
Some of it did,
Sadly, it did, and we all were kind of cringeworthy thinking, this doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings.
No.
And granted, that's the problem that Amazon thinks that somehow they can overlook and they don't have to fix. But I'm like, no, you have to subvert expectations in a good way, but still closely hold to the expectations of those who saw the films, and it holds dear to not only our hearts, but again, people who have seen it for the first time 2, 3, 4 years ago, who've never witnessed Lord of the Rings, but are just now witnessing it for the first time. You have to ultimately come to fulfill those expectations.
To the themes and characters from Tolkien's work. That's one of the things we point out between Marvel and DC is why Marvel's so successful and why I think they've kind of run into a few snags here and there recently is because they have always been very faithful to the characters in the comics. And here recently, they've kind of been making a few changes to be a little bit more PC, and it's kind of stricken some ire. And that's what, like DC, they have not been completely faithful. You know, they wanted Superman to be more dark and broody, but that's not Superman. So it's one of those things where when you're not faithful to the characters and the themes that people fell in love with in these novels, these comics, these whatever have you.
Well, again, what made them timeless to begin with? Yeah. And that's the ultimate issue.
You're trying to fix something that's not broke.
Exactly. 100%.
And that's what they love to do. They always love to try. Do you see how problematic this is? When? Where? But we're going to fix this. Now Lord of the Rings is not
sadly,
no
that's the age of Hollywood that we're in right now. And I have no hope that the Amazon Prime Lord of the Rings Rings of Power is going to change my mind in that regard. I absolutely, based on the trailer alone, I sadly am looking least forward to it than I was before, had I seen anything.
Yeah.
So we'll see when it comes out. Of course, I'll tune in just to get an inkling of what it's about. But ultimately, no, I don't have any hope for it, and I don't know. We'll see what's to come. All right, I think we're finally ready to move on.
Long enough.
We did, and I'm tipsy. I can't lie.
Prattle on.
I'm tipsy.
Prattle on.
I think we're ready to move on to our story time segment. So let's roll that open.
Roll it.
It's story time, where the podcast members tell their stories.
I think a piece of my iPad case fell off into my drink. I had to fish it out during that segment.
Oh, it didn't ruin it, did you? What? There's more over there.
Oh, no, it's...
You need some more?
Came off of this, and I mean, the alcohol content, I'm sure it's sterile.
I think you should just...
Pour a little bit more?
No, well, yeah.
I mean...
Just so it doesn't get ruined.
Okay.
He's doing it, too.
I mean...
No, I can't...
We only have one segment left in the show.
Hey, that's what you think. Who knows? We don't know what bourbon does. Oh, there he goes.
Look at that.
Hey, I drink a little bit more than
just
that.
A little.
But you got to drive home.
Yeah, I got to go home. Just a little.
I won't,
just a little.
I mean, you can crash on my couch if you want.
Well, I got to work.
Oh, that's true. I got to work too.
Yeah, but see,
I got to run in the morning.
I would have to get
run.
up
I got to
drive home to work. If I go home now, I can just roll out of bed and go to work.
Yeah, that's the thing. You work from home.
Exactly. So
do you drink on the job?
No, that is illegal. It is not allowed.
I'm not trying to get you fired.
No, but no, I honestly never have, and don't ever plan to because I'm
it's on the record. It's official. He does not.
I'm
drink.
an honest person. I don't drink on the job. I wouldn't want to. I work with medical stuff. I wouldn't want.
It fell.
She hit the chair.
That ain't good.
She took Sean out.
Sean, He's sorry.
Gone. What's our unique segment?
Just on the
Brandon's getting very distracted right now.
I feel bad because his star fell.
It's a sign.
It was a sign. It's now on the floor.
It means the Commanders are resurrecting him.
Oh, that's good.
The tribute no longer needs to be
Who knows?
there.
Maybe he'll tune in this episode.
Maybe.
It's not going to happen. Okay, yeah, let's talk about...
call in. He might be tuning in. He might be watching us right now.
I hope he's watching us.
What happened?
What the hell is going on with these guys and being drunk on the air? I'm not drunk.
On there.
I'm tipsy.
Oh, yeah.
There's a difference.
I can tell.
But you got to admit, I'm hosting, I'm tipsy, and I'm
you're doing
directing at the same time.
I mean, it's amazing.
It's pretty incredible. I don't know what this feeling is like. This is what real power is like.
We spent 3 minutes just talking about being tipsy.
Okay, let's talk about a time when someone took care of you. Which is what I need right now.
I think originally meant when you were sick.
Give me some more bourbon.
But I've taken care of you before. Maybe not when you were sick.
I do remember that. Oh, man.
Yeah.
That wasn't even what I was thinking about, but go ahead.
No. I don't know if you want me to share that story. He cut his foot after a round of drinking at Sean's house. And
Hey, what? Shh, don't say where it was at.
Oh.
I don't know if that's supposed to be released.
That's true.
Well, now everybody knows.
It was a long time ago. I mean, it was. It wasn't like it was recently.
It was. It was back in college. Probably before I was able to drink.
Yeah, ooh, the bad. But no, it wasn't like we were just getting over there getting wasted. It wasn't like that. But I just meant that Brandon got some tipsy, went out in the lawn. I don't even know what you cut your foot on.
It was a rock.
Okay.
Sean pulled out the mower from under his deck at his old house, and we already knew at that point we were gone. And I know I'm probably telling more than I should, but all I know is that I was walking back inside, and I think I cut myself on a rock, and you all tended to that wound very nicely, and I appreciate that. You all were there for me.
But yeah, I mean, I've been sick.
And I passed out at the end of the night.
I think this was intended just because Sean's homesick, and I think you just meant rather.
Yeah, I brought this more for.
And I mean, of course, my family, like as far as my parents, when I get sick, I mean, even now, like they haven't. It's not like they come up, but my mom, like recently when I had some dental work done, she's like, well, if you need anything or you run and get anything, just text or call. And of course I don't, because I don't want to burden them, but it's definitely, they would definitely be willing to help me if I needed it. And of course, when I was young living at home, my grandmother, I remember being home with chicken pox. I missed the field trip to the zoo because it was terrible, but my grandmother took care of me, and my aunt, who always volunteered at my elementary school, she came home with like this little toy zap gun because she knew I didn't get to go to the zoo, and she's like, I got you this.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I'm just, it made little like
it
sound.
had a little spark inside.
Yeah,
like it had the
This
see-through
is
plastic, and when it made the noise and you could see the spark. Yeah,
and, I mean, I
those.
appreciated it definitely. I mean, it wasn't the same as getting to go to the zoo, but of course you go to the zoo like 500 times when you're in elementary school. So it's like, no, I didn't get to go that year, but of course the next year, the year after, it's like every year they take you to the zoo.
Well, it's funny because in elementary school you think that you never go on field trips, but you probably go on one like once a month, and you don't think about it.
You don't realize it. And everything. Well, because when you're younger, it's like I swear everything. Like summers lasted longer, days were longer.
Isn't that true?
Yes, and it's like when you get to like older, you get to high school, and you don't actually ever go anywhere.
This is not about a time that someone took care of you. I'll get to that.
Oh no.
No, I just remember our summers, and I remember you would come when we moved into the new house. You would come over and spend the night. And I remember, it's funny because this is before we weren't hoodlums or anything, but we would be dropped off at Kentucky Kingdom and spend all day at Kentucky Kingdom. And I just remember this. I have this vivid memory of one time where like my mom was getting ready for work, and so she got us up and we were eating breakfast at the my dining room table, and she was going to take us there to drop us off. And before we got there, we were like playing Game Boy at the dining room table, and we were playing like I think you had Red version.
No.
Great parenting decisions. I mean, the parent award of the year. But no, we were playing like I think you were playing like Pokemon Red, and I was playing Pokemon Blue. And I remember we were playing on our Game Boys, and then like my mom was like, "Hey, we need to go head to Kentucky Kingdom. I got to go to work," and she'd take us up there, drop us off.
Oh man, fun times.
Man, good times. I mean, like you said, though, it just like the summer days lasted longer, the summers lasted longer, and then of course at the end of the summer, you felt the exact opposite. You were it wasn't long enough.
Yeah, but then you had to go to school.
It sucked. Just wait for the weekend. Looking forward to the weekend. But no, I do want to bring up a time when it was funny because you actually talking about your grandma getting you a toy because you missed the zoo trip. There was a time that I actually, and it was not because my parents or my family was dirty.
They were dirty.
They were. It's not the right way to phrase it.
No, but
no, I had head lice.
Oh,
and I missed a field trip.
Dirty.
No, but
it means you're clean because lice don't like dirty hair. They
well,
can't move around.
they like oily hair, and I will say that I definitely think I caught it from somebody it was in elementary school. We had a field trip planned, and I had to miss the field trip because I had lice. And my parents, of course, were just, running around the house, having to wash all the sheets.
Yeah.
They had to, I had to take at least like probably 2 or 3 baths a day to make sure I was getting rid of the lice. And I remember they, when I was finally clear, it actually ended up being on the day of the field trip, but I still didn't go back to school out of precaution, kind of like COVID. And I remember my dad taking me to McDonald's, and it actually happened to be the exact same McDonald's that the field trip was at.
I remember you telling me the story before.
And I remember my dad was even telling me like, yeah, you can go out there and play. And I was playing with some of the kids on the lunch.
Because you weren't sick. You had
no,
lice.
I mean, and even then, like the lice was gone at that point. But they were just doing it out of precaution to keep me out of school.
Yeah.
And plus, I think the field trip was on like a Friday, so it was like, all right, he's already been out most of the week. We'll just keep him out. So I remember playing with a lot of my friends it was at McDonald's in the play place.
That is kind of cool though that happened.
Yeah, and it was funny because I remember when they all left, they were waving at me. They're like, "Come on, we got to go." And I was like, "No, I'm with my dad." Like, and my dad even looking at him, and I remember him telling him like, "You all go on and go. Like, he's with me. Like, I'll take him home." Like, they wanted me to come back to school and leave from there.
Yeah.
And I remember like getting home, and they had rented Tremors. And I remember watching Tremors that night. It was a great movie. It was a good time. It was a good time.
Move your butt.
Yeah, please move your butt. But no, I just remember that time specifically, and another time when I think I was in middle school, and it was right after Spider-Man had come out on VHS/DVD, and I remember my mom renting that for me, or actually I owned it. I think I got it for a Christmas present, and I was sick shortly after Christmas, and I remember staying home and watching Spider-Man, and my mom actually brought me home this labyrinth that had like this little metal marble that you could twist and turn the different planes, and you had to keep it from rolling into the holes.
I think David Bowie had 2 when he did the little, or was it 3? I don't remember.
Dance, magic dance.
I just heard labyrinth and I thought,
I know.
Yeah,
you can't not think of David Bowie and his gigantic ball sack.
His potpourri crotch.
The bog of eternal stench.
That's what was going on down there. That's why they had to shove the potpourri in.
What about you? Any more?
I can't think of any.
That was a good one, though.
Yeah, no, I mean,
going over to, was it your grandma? You went over to your grandma's house?
My grandmother used to watch, like, I would go to and from school from her house. They put her address as my address. That's when I went to Watson Lane, because my mom would have to go to work before, like, I would have to be at school. So, and she didn't really have anyone to watch me or drop me off at school. So she would get my grandmother to watch me, and it was easier for her because she lived there off Pendleton Road, and Watson Lane was just a couple streets behind her house.
Oh, okay.
So they put my address in order for me to go there. They when they found, like, they applied with her address as where I lived, even though that wasn't true. Yes, we lied to JCPS.
So not the first time.
So I went to Watson Lane to make it easier on my
JCPS is a lie in general.
Yeah, but I mean, I did enjoy going there. But yeah, anytime like I was sick or something, because my mom and my dad worked, I mean, I was at my grandmother's house, and that would be where I would stay.
I was gonna say, I remember my mom used to drop me off at my aunt's, and I'd pick the bus up there. And there would be times where, if I can't really remember though of a time where I might have been sick and I just stayed at my aunt's. I'm sure there was, but I might have stayed home too, and my parents took care of me. I really don't remember. I remember more when we moved into the new house, and like if I had a sick day or something, my mom would be like, "Yeah, go upstairs." I remember this one time in high school. Honestly, I had a sick day, and I mean I really was sick, but it was more of one of those queasy feelings that wore off after like a couple hours, and it was probably like 11 in the morning, and I remember just like waking up and playing Metal Gear Solid 3 and like trying to get like all of the different camo that you could
remember this was high school, nobody was taking care of me. I just remember being homesick and had been taking like Dayquil and NyQuil throughout the day, and that normally makes me groggy. I just remember waking up at like it was like 2 in the morning. My family had a bunch of movie channels then at one point.
Skinamax.
Well, no, not that. It was. I woke up and like I had obviously like you're supposed to sleep through the night on NyQuil mostly. So when I woke up, like I was really out of it and groggy. Like in my head was kind of like I was just dizzy from the NyQuil. And I turned on the TV just to have like background noise. And Moulin Rouge it was the first time I ever saw Moulin.
Great movie.
But it was the first time I ever saw Moulin Rouge, and I was like basically high off NyQuil, and I just
tripping out.
I was like I loved that movie. I was like, this movie's great.
It's great. Kylie Minogue as the Green Fairy.
Yeah, everything's just spinning around, and everything. I was like, this movie's great.
Baz Luhrmann definitely knows how to make a trippy film, no doubt.
That's right.
Alrighty, guys. I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. We actually thought we'd be shorter without Sean.
No, we
tonight.
ran a little. We
ran our normal time.
We just said, we're gonna keep talking.
We can.
Maybe it's the liquor.
It's definitely the bourbon. I don't know. Maybe we should be more liquored up on our shows. Who knows?
Ooh,
but you
Sean
can tell
like
us
bourbon.
and
I'll
let
be
us
back
know.
with some beer next week.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't. That was the reason we switched to bourbon. You know, like you said, pour one for the homies. I drank 2 of these. Not too full. Gosh,
well,
no.
you never fill a bourbon glass. That would
No. Well, and I asked, if you wanted it neat, we could have watered it down a little bit.
Water, kind of ice. Yeah.
Same here. But no, we poured one for our buddy Sean, who's going to be back next week, hopefully. He just texted us, I think, during the show. Actually, gave us an update.
He did give us an update.
Not dire. It's not bad.
He's just keeping us updated on his health, and
but
we
letting us
appreciate
know
that.
he just got another positive test, so
Yeah.
he's still got the vid.
He's out for a little while, but we look forward to his return.
We hope he'll be back next week. Want him to join us, but we will. We'll partake in another beer that I was given to by my former friend / colleague / well, I won't say former friend. He's still a friend, but former manager. Craig. He gave us a bunch of beer. We still got like 4 or 5 to test and let you know what we think. So we'll be doing that next week, along with another great review. And what are we reviewing next week? Keith?
I don't wanna.
You don't wanna?
Uncharted.
Yeah, you don't think it'll be decent?
I don't.
It
have
won't be,
faith.
I don't think it'll be as good as Shut In.
I don't.
I
don't have a lot of faith in, and I could be proven wrong. I mean, I like Tom Holland. I just don't think he's a good fit for Nathan Drake. But I could be proven wrong.
Here's the thing: I don't think he was bad for young Drake.
Yeah.
But I just don't think there needs to be a whole movie about young Drake.
Yeah.
And the one I'm more mystified by and I don't like is Mark
Wahlberg.
Wahlberg as Sully.
I was going to get to that. I was like, that I think is just completely terrible.
Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see. It looks like they just took a lot of moments, like key moments, out of the games.
I mean, some of the stuff that like, I don't believe they're getting them ships out of those caves by helicopter intact in such a manner.
Why not?
And the only thing, and I mean, it is Uncharted-esque, but at the same time, watching them swing on the ropes from ship to ship in the middle of the air, I'm thinking of like the whirlpool scene in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm just like, only now you're in the air, and it's like, yeah, I'm not saying that wouldn't happen Uncharted, but again, it's kind of like the ring in Moonfall. It's like when you do things that are very much visually reminiscent.
Terrible.
Yeah, when you do something that's very much visually reminiscent of a bigger property or an equally big property,
it immediately takes you back to that property.
And it's like you don't want to, unless you can put your own unique stamp on it, and maybe they will, but judging by the trailer, they didn't. I'm just like, okay, now we have National Treasure meets Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know.
Pretty much. That's exactly. Yeah, no. I think that hits the nail on the head.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But that'll be the movie we review next week. Is Uncharted.
And, I mean, it might surprise me. I'm not going to write it out yet.
We'll see.
I do like the video game series. So. Yeah.
Oh, but and that's the weird nature that I fit in. That's kind of where I ultimately land. Is the video games are so well done in terms of not only being a video
They're already
game
very
and interactive,
yeah.
they're very cinematic, and the stories are really well done. Again, it was kind of during a time when video games were transitioning into trying to be more cinematic, but they pulled it off in a really, really well done way. I mean, kind of what gives me a little bit of hesitancy, just like with The Lord of the Rings and Amazon Prime. Same with, I think it's HBO doing the Last of Us.
Oh, The Last of Us, yeah.
And I'm a little skeptical of that as well.
I mean, I like the cast. I do think the 2 people they picked for those casts are good, but I'm still skeptical. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. But until next time, of course, you can always email us. Let us know your thoughts at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com right there at the bottom of your screen. And as always, you can follow us on all of our social media accounts. again at the bottom of your screen. Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweet, Red Moon Picks, and just search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. We appreciate all of the love and support. And until next time, I am, of course, one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside, he's not here this week, but he will return next week, hopefully, our normal new host, Sean Sebastian. And, oh, come on. It was a good episode.
It was.
Your name?
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.